On March 4, 2025, just after noon, a white Toyota RAV4 pulled into my bay with a driver who looked more confused than worried. She had owned the car for 6 years, never skipped an oil change, and treated it like family. But that morning, something changed. The engine felt different. Not broken, not loud, just different. A subtle hesitation at low speeds, a sluggish pull from a stoplight, and a fuel gauge that seemed to move faster than usual. She had already called the dealership. They told her to bring it in, mentioned something about a sensor, possibly the throttle body, maybe a software update. The estimate they floated before even touching the car was over $1,800. I did not reach for a wrench. I did not open a parts catalog. I pressed one button, ran one procedure, and 40 minutes later she drove away. Same car, same engine. 0 parts replaced. The hesitation was gone. The throttle responded immediately. The idle sat exactly where it was supposed to sit. And that $1,800 estimate evaporated into thin air. That moment is the reason this video exists, because that button, and what happens after you press it, is something Toyota knows about, engineers rely on, and almost no owner ever hears about. If you drive a Toyota, this could be the most important thing you watch this year. Here is what most drivers never realize. Toyota engines are not just mechanical systems, they are adaptive learning systems. From the moment your Toyota rolls off the lot, every module inside it starts learning. The engine control unit learns how you accelerate, how long your trips are, how much load you put on the engine at different temperatures. The transmission control module learns your shift preferences, your highway habits, your stop-and-go patterns. Even the throttle system learns the position of the accelerator body over time and builds a profile of what normal looks like. This is not a flaw, it is engineering. Toyota designed these systems to adapt because no two drivers are the same, no two climates are the same, and no two fuel compositions are the same. The car tailors itself to your reality. And for years, that works beautifully. But then something disrupts the learning. A battery replacement, a software update, a repair that required disconnecting a sensor, a weak battery that brownouts the system during a cold start, a change in your driving routine. Suddenly, the data the car has been trusting is no longer accurate. The engine control unit keeps compensating for a version of your car that no longer exists. And the result is a Toyota that feels off. Not broken, not alarming, just wrong. Hesitant from a stop. Rough at idle. Slightly sluggish at highway speeds. Fuel economy that quietly bleeds away without explanation. I have seen this pattern hundreds of times. I have seen Toyota Camrys idle roughly after a perfectly routine battery swap. I have seen RAV4s develop a sluggish throttle after a coolant flush. I have seen Corollas shift harshly after a fluid service. And in almost every single case, the driver assumed something was wrong mechanically. They Googled symptoms, read forum threads, found horror stories about throttle bodies and fuel injectors, and arrived at my shop already bracing for damage. The actual problem was not in the hardware, it was in the memory. And this is where Toyota did something unusual, something that most manufacturers do not explain in the owner's manual, and that most dealerships do not volunteer. Toyota built a reset procedure directly into the car, a legitimate sequence designed by engineers that wipes corrupted adaptive data and forces the system to relearn from scratch. No scan tool required. No special software, no dealer appointment, just you, your ignition, your accelerator pedal, and about 40 minutes of calm driving. That is the button. That is the procedure. And it works in a way that feels almost too simple to believe until you experience it firsthand. Let me explain what is actually happening inside a Toyota when the system drifts. Your engine control unit, ECU, is constantly managing the air-fuel mixture. It does this by tracking oxygen sensor feedback, mass airflow readings, coolant temperature, throttle position, and intake air temperature. All of those inputs get processed thousands of times per minute to deliver the right amount of fuel at the right moment. But the ECU does not just react to live data. It also stores learned corrections called fuel trims. Short-term fuel trims adjust in real time. Long-term fuel trims are stored memories that reflect patterns the ECU has seen over months of driving. When a sensor starts drifting, or when a maintenance event disrupts the system, those long-term trims can become corrupted. The ECU keeps trusting them. It keeps adding fuel that is not needed, or withholding fuel that is, and the engine quietly suffers. That sluggish throttle response you feel is not a failing motor. It is the ECU responding to outdated information and overcorrecting. The rough idle is not a vacuum leak. It is the idle air control relearning against a baseline that no longer fits reality. The soft shift you feel from the transmission is not worn clutch packs. It is the transmission control module using shift logic built around a driving profile that changed the last time you drove differently. All of it is data. And bad data produces bad behavior every single time, without a single mechanical failure anywhere in the car. The Toyota throttle body initialization procedure, sometimes called the idle reset or the ECU reset sequence, is designed specifically to clear corrupted data and force a clean relearn. Toyota actually documented this procedure for their technicians, and it applies across a wide range of models, including the Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Highlander, Tacoma, Tundra, and many hybrid variants. The exact steps vary slightly by model year, but the core logic is the same. You clear the current adaptive memory and then walk the ECU through a structured relearn under controlled conditions. No drama, no parts, no bill. Here is how you perform the standard Toyota ECU reset and idle relearn correctly. Start with the engine fully cold or fully warmed up. Do not attempt this procedure with a partially warm engine, because the relearn requires accurate temperature baselines. Make sure your battery is in good health before starting. A weak battery during this procedure can corrupt the relearn itself and make things worse, not better. If your battery is more than 4 years old and you have not had it tested recently, test it first. Turn the ignition to the on position without starting the engine. On models with a push-button start, press the start button once without pressing the brake pedal. You want the dash lit up, but the engine off. Now press the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor and hold it there for 45 seconds. Do not pump it. Do not release and press it again. Simply hold it flat and count. You are signaling the throttle position sensor and clearing the adaptive memory stored in the throttle control module. On many Toyota models, this also sends a reset command to the idle air volume learning system. After 45 seconds, release the pedal completely. Release and then wait 30 seconds without touching anything. Now start the engine normally and let it idle. Do not touch the accelerator. Do not rev the engine. Do not turn on the air conditioning, the rear defroster, or any major electrical load. Let the engine sit at idle for at least 10 minutes. This is not optional. This idle period is where the ECU rebuilds its baseline idle air volume. If you interrupt it by revving, loading the electrical system, or shutting it off early, the relearn is incomplete and you will feel it. The idle may hunt. The throttle response may feel inconsistent. You have to respect the process. After the idle period, take the car through what Toyota calls a drive cycle relearn. This is the phase most people skip, and it is the reason many drivers try this procedure and say it only kind of worked. Drive at low speed, below 30 miles per hour, for at least 5 minutes. Use light throttle, gentle acceleration, and no sudden inputs. This teaches the ECU the correct fuel trims at light load. Then accelerate to highway speed and cruise between 50 and 60 miles per hour for at least 10 minutes at a steady throttle and without hard accelerations. This is where the long-term fuel trims rebuild at cruise load. Finally, decelerate naturally without braking abruptly and return to city speed. Allow the engine to return to idle multiple times during this phase. Each deceleration event teaches the throttle body the correct closed position behavior. After this full sequence, the relearn is complete. The ECU is now operating on fresh, accurate data. In the vast majority of cases, that sluggish throttle is gone. The idle is smooth, the shifts are clean, the fuel economy starts returning to where it should be. I want to be honest with you about what this procedure does and does not fix. This is not magic, it is a recalibration. If your throttle body is physically dirty with carbon buildup on the butterfly valve, the relearn will expose that problem rather than hide it. If a sensor is genuinely failing and sending wrong data, the relearn will struggle to hold its corrections. If there is a vacuum leak, a dirty mass airflow sensor, or an exhaust leak affecting oxygen sensor readings, those problems will prevent a stable relearn. What the reset does is remove the layer of corrupted memory sitting on top of those potential issues. If the reset works completely and the symptoms vanish, you had a data problem, not a hardware problem, and you just saved yourself hundreds or thousands of dollars. If the reset works partially and symptoms return within a week, you have a real underlying issue, but you now know exactly where to look. The reset is your diagnostic filter. It separates ghost problems from real ones. Every experienced Toyota technician uses it for exactly that purpose before authorizing any parts replacement. There is one more procedure worth understanding, specifically for Toyota owners who have experienced a battery replacement or a disconnect event. When the battery goes dead or is replaced, the ECU loses its stored fuel trims and long-term adaptive memory. Most drivers do not know this, and most shops do not mention it. The car restarts, everything seems fine, and then over the next few days, drivers start noticing odd behavior. The idle hunts briefly after a cold start. The transmission shifts feel firmer than before. The throttle response feels slightly wooden. These are not coincidences. The ECU is relearning from scratch with no baseline, and it is collecting imperfect data during that relearning phase. Running the drive cycle relearn immediately after a battery replacement prevents that degraded phase entirely. You give the ECU clean, structured data from the very first moments of relearning, and the car never goes through that weeks-long drift. It is one of the most valuable things you can do after any battery service, and almost no one explains it. Toyota built these reset and relearn procedures because they understood something about how modern vehicles fail. Not with noise and drama, but quietly, through data drift, through adaptive memory that slowly diverges from reality, through a system that keeps trusting information that no longer reflects the truth. The engineers knew drivers would change batteries. They knew sensors would drift. They knew maintenance events would disrupt learned baselines. So they built in a way to correct it, a way that requires no special tools, no dealer visit, no expensive diagnosis. They built it into the car itself. The problem is that nobody told you it was there. Now you know it is there. And that changes everything about how you respond the next time your Toyota feels off. Before you spend a single dollar at a shop, before you authorize a diagnostic fee, before you let someone quote you a throttle body replacement or a module reflash, run this procedure. Spend 40 minutes. Follow the steps exactly. Then drive normally for 2 days and observe. If the symptoms resolve, you just made the smartest free repair of your life. If they do not, you have lost nothing except time, and you have gained the certainty that a real mechanical inspection is genuinely needed. That clarity alone is worth more than most diagnostic fees. The most dangerous car problem is not the expensive one. It is the cheap one that nobody told you about. Because cheap problems left unfixed become expensive ones. And expensive problems that were never really broken in the first place cost you money you should never have spent. Press the button. Run the relearn. Drive your Toyota the way it was designed to be driven. If this changed how you think about your car, hit like so other Toyota owners see it before they spend money they do not need to spend. Subscribe for weekly videos that give you real knowledge instead of fear. Drop a comment below if you have ever paid for a repair that a reset could have fixed. Those stories matter because the more drivers understand how these systems actually work, the harder it becomes to take advantage of them.